All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's presentation. I'm Jamie Bradley with Ambition, and today's presentation is called Fortify Your Frontline, Building and Coaching a Brilliant SDR Team. Really excited to have some experts from Zoom, Factor 8, and of course, Ambition. Before we hop in, do you want to do some housekeeping? So we will send the recording. So if you do need to hop off, or if you're just like, whoa, I need to share this with everyone I've ever met because it was so brilliant, we will email that to you in the next 24 hours or so. Also, you'll be muted throughout today's presentation. So please type into the chat if you have questions. This is a Q&A. A lot of you typed really, really great questions at registration. So we'll get to some of those as well, but don't be shy. Also, you can move your displays around, so if my face is in the way of something you want to see, don't worry about that. We will, the world is your oyster here. So I am, again, I'm Jamie from Ambition. We are the #1 sales performance management system. So from coaching and analytics to TVs and contests, our tools make it really easy for you to activate your sales team and get the most out of them on the sales floor every single day. And I am joined here, and I'll start from the bottom on my screen. So I'm here, Lauren Bailey from Factor 8. If you'd like to introduce yourself to the crew, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, you guys. I'm Lauren Bailey. You can call me LB. I am founder of Factor 8 and the Sales Bar. And at Factor 8, we're best known for the sales rep frontline training. For sales reps, sales training built by sales leaders and getting reps live on the phones, getting results during training. So my perspective today will be helping share what we've seen across hundreds of sales floors around the world and what different companies are doing with their SDR teams.
Awesome. Well, very happy to have you here. And we are very lucky to also have Lindsay Lorenzo from Zoom with us here. LB introduced us to Lindsay. We are so excited that you guys are friends and you landed in our laps because you are an expert. So tell everyone a little bit about what you do at Zoom.
Yes. Hey, everybody. Lindsay Lorenzo. So I am the director of our SDR and BDR teams here at Zoom. I've been here for about 10 months. Previously, I've been in lead gen, SDR, BDR for pretty much my whole sales career, 10 plus years, and been at companies like Box and Salesforce. So feel very lucky to be here at Zoom, scaling out the BDR and SDR teams. Happy to be here today.
Awesome. And oops.
Don't forget Mark.
No, you can forget me.
No, not Mark. So anyway, I'm just
our token guy.
Presentation. Yeah, you don't worry about him. He's just Mark. No, last but not least is Mark McWaters from Ambition. Mark, tell him what you do.
Yeah, hi everybody. Lucky to be the token guy on this webinar. I'm the VP of Sales here at Ambition. I've been here about 2 years. Most recently moved into this role about 4 months ago. So really lucky to join smart people like Lauren and Lindsay, and excited to contribute to how Ambition not only helps SDR teams, but also how we're scaling our own. The other piece I'll add is that I started my sales career as an appointment setter before the SDR title existed. So I have been in this seat and look forward to hopefully contributing like these other brilliant minds in Lauren and Lindsay.
Awesome. Well, again, very excited to have all of you with us. And I jumped ahead, sneak preview, just really high level. I know most of you on the line, I'm sure, either work with SDR teams or SDRs yourselves. If we have someone who's joined who's not sure what that means, just really high level. An SDR is a sales development rep. We're also going to talk about business development rep as we go through. And really what that means, an SDR is likely the very first person that someone's going to encounter in your business. So when we talk about this being an important role, it definitely can't be something that's a second, kind of thought on your agenda. These are the front line, the person that, if I download content, I might hear from this person. I may just get a cold email from this person. So making sure that they're trained and fired up is really important. Obviously, they're the person that books meetings, and they really play gatekeeper, especially in our organization. I know, as we get leads in, some are great fits, some are not, and those SDRs have a very vital role in making sure that as marketers, we're bringing the right people into the fold there. They also just basically prevent bottlenecks at the top of your funnel. No longer do AEs or closers have to focus solely on doing everything in that buyer's journey. The SDR, BDR force is really vital to that. And also they're sitting in a position where they are really amateur detectives. They're looking and seeing, what am I opening? What am I not? What am I downloading? What pages am I visiting? What am I doing on LinkedIn? So these people not only are the first line, but they're some of the most knowledgeable about the prospects that you are, talking to. So big fan of SDRs and BDRs here. That's kind of high level, the function and the role that we're talking about today. I'm a nerd, so I was like, what's the history of SDRs? And I think it's really interesting to point out, sales as a function is as old as, caveman probably selling firewood and flint. The SDR function, though, or that role, is really only as old as me. It's from the early 80s. Started at Oracle with Aniki Seeley, and Mark Benioff was on that team. So way back in the day, that happened. By the mid 80s, you had some of your first consulting firms or other industries springing up to support this function. So people are going, okay, this is working. Throughout the 80s and 90s, big B2B orgs were really proliferated with this SDR function. And really back then it was just cold calling, people hammering the phones, doing anything, seeing what would stick.
I think we called it telemarketing.
Yes, exactly. I mean,
I remember having telemarketing teams. Yeah.
Yes.
And then telesales and then inside sales and digital.
Exactly. And those people were the pioneers of the modern SDR. In 98, Trish Bertuzzi founded the Bridge Group. And I mentioned that because in doing research just ahead of this, you couldn't find a stat that I felt like wasn't sourced from the Bridge Group. They really became, really found a niche of being thought leaders in the space and putting forth information that would make people better at building these teams. So by the 2000s, we had even more consulting firms popping up, Series Decisions, Topo, Factor 8, teams that are really dedicated to making sure that inside sales organizations are, hiring the right people, staffing the right way, coaching the right way, and coming in and honestly being fixers for mistakes made along the way. So, and then by 2011, we saw predictable revenue sort of hit the scene, which really helped mainstream this idea of let's stop just cold calling people. Let's take a little bit more of a holistic, focused approach, and really helped to take it away from, okay, these are huge B2B companies that have SDRs. Now everyone, if you have two salespeople, one of them can be the SDR, and so sort of leveled the playing field a little bit for a lot of people. And then we have today, it's a major function of really every fast growing, especially B2B, especially tech organization out there. So it's important. And I will end my slide deck with a quote though, or a stat from the Bridge Group. The challenge that we face with building and scaling these teams is that the average ramp time is around 3 months. So there aren't a lot of people. These are not roles necessarily where it's just rip and, you got a person that's ready to go. So there's some training that goes into it. There's a lot of coaching, a lot of identification, and then the tenure of your average SDR is a lot shorter. These people move on to other roles or move on to other companies. It's not necessarily the most tenured position. People don't stay here for a long time. So that's a challenge that we all face as we talk about building and scaling these really great teams. And so for today's talk, I'm going to hop immediately into the questions, but we will cover, spiffs, contests, competitions, that sort of thing, coaching, how we hit those big goals with that, sales enablement, collateral, what does it take along the way to keep people, learning and motivated, and then just really what does it take to hire and build and nurture and maintain these teams, because there is quite a bit of sort of transition and turnover and attrition happening there. So I'm going to stop my screen share here. I'm going to make everybody, there we go. And I'm just going to hop right in to some questions here. So right out of the gate, we have got, let me see here. Let's scroll down. Okay, so right out of the gate,
Who's the puppet master now, Jamie?
Huh?
Who's the puppet master now?
I know. Seriously, what am I doing here? Not me, because I didn't have my thing in the right spot. So I think really you guys introduced yourselves, beautifully. We've got Lauren, who's worked with tons of companies who are building and growing these teams. We've got Lindsay and Mark, who started as SDRs and now are building these teams as well. Can you speak a little bit more, and you can kind of just go round robin, if you will, about sort of your experience, Lindsay and Mark, what was that transition like from Mark, you went from SDR to sales. What did that look like? Lindsay, you decided I want to stay in this area of the buyer's journey. And then Lauren, you've been there and done that and seen it all, mistakes, warts and all that people have made. So tell me a little bit more about your backgrounds with this role.
Mark, I've got you on the top left. Do you want to go first?
Sure, happy to. So my experience as an appointment setter was working in a call center environment in the manufactured and modular homes industry in college.
Wow.
And my dad was always in sales. I thought, I want to make a living working with people. I'll go get on the phones. And so that was my first foot in the door into sales, and really everybody likes a good Mike Tyson line of everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face. Like that was the job where I was cutting my teeth and had a lot of punches and really taught valuable lessons on how to overcome no's, and every no that you overcome, you're closer to a yes. So that's how I got started, and we can obviously get into more about ambition and our sales development case here soon, but that's how I got started in the role.
Lindsay?
Yeah, so like you said, I started in SDR. I literally never left. SDR back at Salesforce early on, I think 2009, 2010. I loved it. I became a BDR from there, enterprise inside rep. And I just loved the value that this role and these roles can provide to an organization. So from there, instead of moving on into an account executive role, I went to Box, helped build out that team there of outbound reps. And I think it's so cool what we can bring to an organization. Whether you're just a small company starting out or you're a really large company, you still have the ability to help scale your sales organization and prepare those account executives, give them the at-bats, give them the pipeline that they need to close, get an AE ramped up, a little bit faster. I've worked with a lot of teams where the BDR or SDR is actually a lot more technically savvy with the product and can actually help the AE ramp up faster as well. So I've seen some really great pairings there. And I just know it's such a valuable role. So I love what we do, and I want to do it my whole rest of my career. So yeah.
I love it.
That's awesome. All right. So I'm as old as dirt. So when I was in sales, I was like the BDR and the ISR and the AE and the field rep, et cetera, et cetera. When I ran sales teams, we were doing acquisition sales, which is that combination of kind of like warm and cold calls. It was somewhat BDR, somewhat, right? We didn't have that title back then, if you will. The part I love the most, in the last 5 years, we've seen more and more clients start asking us for BDR specific training. And in fact, we've evolved with that too, right? Like when the first people asked us, I was like, well, what the hell's the difference? It's an outbound call. You're going to need the same skills as we give everybody else. And I understand now that was wrong, right? And we've evolved to the point where when companies ask us, hey, can we just put all our BDRs in the same class as our closers, as our account managers? We say no, right? Because that's doing them a disservice. So what I really focused on and my team has focused on for the last couple of years is how do we get BDRs up to speed much faster, right? So we've been successful in cutting that ramp time, an average of 3+ months, in half and then some. With the right combinations of skills at the right times. And that's really been the fun nut to crack for us.
Yeah. Well, and obviously, Lauren, in sort of prepping for this, you have so much, so many great articles and blog posts that I was, kind of digging through online. So if you're looking for a resource, definitely go to Factor 8 as well. But one thing that I loved, you speak about that ramp time specifically,
Yeah.
and I'm sure many people would be interested to hear, what are some of the top tips of breaking through, like you've got that 3-month window. What are the critical things that a new SDR has to be doing?
This would be fun to even round robin, right? I would love to hear what you guys have to say too. So I'll kick it off. One of the most important things, the very top of my list, is for a BDR, we've got to focus on first base, right? So I'm going to move from boxing to baseball. And if everybody remembers Moneyball, from way back when, everybody was talking about the fact it's got to be about like getting on first. It's not about closing anymore or getting the home run, right? It's about at bats and how often can you get on first base. So for a BDR, that is the funnel. If we can't get more conversations, we can't get anything else. So that's where we like to focus the skills. So when you have a new BDR or an SDR hit the floor, what are they going to do the most of for their first 3 weeks? Leave voicemails. Right? There are right ways and wrong ways to approach voicemails and leave voicemails. And if you do it the right way, you can literally get 10, 20x the return calls. Those are warm. Those are automatic conversations that you didn't have to do 200 dials to get. So that's one of the first places we like to start. And then the second place, I'll go very quickly here, is that first 10 seconds of the call. If you haven't been specifically trained on how to give a good engaging introduction, then I guarantee you're screwing it up, right? As anybody would, right? You go through 2 weeks of training, you're excited, somebody finally answers the phone, and you're like, So that's tough, right? And so we lose a lot of people there too. So if we can tweak those two things first, automatically we're getting double or triple the number of conversations and at-bats, which is going to see its way all the way down the pipeline. So that's where I like to start. Lindsay, I'm passing it over to you next.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think you have to learn your messaging, whether you're inbound or outbound. You have to have that first 10 minutes or 10 seconds, like you said, nailed down. So we also focus on that. I think the other piece is just understanding your tech tool stack that you have, how to leverage those tools appropriately. I think we've all seen with some, of the email outreach tools, you can get a little sideways if you don't know how to actually put in a cadence, and you'll lose track. And God, it's like back when I was an SDR and a BDR, we didn't have those amazing tools. So we just did like mass emails through Google, and it was a spreadsheet. But now it's such a powerful tool that you have to understand how to use them. And the SDR tool stack is just incredible now. But making sure they know how to use those. And then just getting over that initial fear of getting on the phone. Like Lauren said, I think a lot of people start to get in their head a little bit. They need to know the product right away. And really it's just about being that first person that you're going to, you're setting the stage for your product. So have that, the first 10 seconds done, a couple highlights, but really focus it on the prospect you're calling. So the last piece would probably be get them to learn how to research 1 or 2 things, where to look for quickly, a couple key, pieces of information that tie what they're doing to your product and why they should be talking to you right now. So making it personable, I think, is the other piece, and not having to spend 10 minutes per call trying to research. You can find it pretty quickly if you know what to do.
Yeah.
So I'll add to continue on the research part of, as a frontline SDR, you have to understand what is on the mind of your prospect. And I always tell them, don't overthink this. This is, you have 20 seconds. Let's have a couple bullet points for the specific ICP that we're calling, and be confident, but be you in the conversation. You laughing in that 20 seconds is hugely important for people to feel comfortable that this is someone kind on the other end of the line. Don't sound like a robot. To pivot a little bit, I also put the expectation on the SDR or BDR manager that they need to clearly define expectations of what right looks like on a daily basis. We all know these roles can be a grind. There are days when you don't get a yes. However, you can celebrate that you're doing the right things that are leading you towards a path of success. And to most people in this role, where it's a entry type role into their sales career, you have to celebrate that they're doing the right things, and you as a leader need to be confident you're pointing them in the right direction.
Hear, hear on that.
Yeah, and those were great answers, because I think what that naturally makes me think of next is, what are those, obviously I read the stat about how there is a lot of turnover, and to Mark's point, this can be seen as a very entry level position. Sometimes people are very knowingly going in and starting there because they want to transition eventually to, being an AE at said company. Some people want to be SDRs, and there's lots of different motivations for people getting into this. So when you're going into the hiring process, I would imagine, with such turnover, you probably need to constantly have a pool of applicants and have that call out there, be aware of it. So how do you do that in a good way? And then second, aside from sort of being hungry and eager, what are some of those, have to have table stake? I wouldn't hire this person if they don't have X. What are those things to you guys?
I'll kick off with the first two I love to see. The first one is curious. I think that where a ton of folks unfortunately go wrong in that BDR role is that they go in assuming that as soon as someone talks to them, their job is to pitch the meeting, because that's what they've been told. Your job is to pitch the meeting, right? But the truth is, nobody's going to say yes to giving away their time. They're probably more likely to give you money before they give you their time, unless there's someone interested. And that's not going to happen unless you're engaging, right? So we like to teach reps that the goal of your BDR outbound call is not to book a meeting. The goal is to engage the prospect. And if you do that well, the outcome is a meeting. So for people to engage, frankly, they need a natural curiosity. They need to want to ask questions, but not just the ones that are written on their script. I hate scripts. Please come back to me on that. But it's like, I actually give a damn and I want to learn about your business. I think this is interesting. Wow, what do you guys do? That's really like that honest curiosity you can't teach, and it's something you got to pull in the interview. And then the second one is coachability, right? Guess what? We don't all have it figured out at the beginning. So when we hire folks, whether it's trainers or salespeople at Factor 8, we'll have them do a role play on the phone. Everybody should. Phone sales interview, right? Not face-to-face first. And then you give them some feedback and see if they can immediately apply that feedback. You will go crazy with what you learn. 50% of the people will immediately self-select out because they are defensive assholes about getting feedback. I can say this because I am sometimes a defensive asshole. So it's like, it just happens, right? And then the other people are like, wow, that was great. Let me think about it. And there's like radio silence for 3 hours, and you think they're probably not going to be fast enough. And then there's this other group of people that are like, let me think about it. Now I'll do it differently. And they do it the exact same way, right? So all of a sudden now you're like, whoop, and I've got my quarter of the people who I really want to have on my team, because if anything, you're going to have to move and shuck and jive in this, in this position. So I like those two the best. Lindsay, how about you?
I totally agree with both of those things. I will try and reword it a little bit differently. So
that's why I go first, because now you have to come up with a third one. And Mark, you're totally screwed.
Just took my answer. No, so I think researching is huge. That, obviously it's the whole part of the job, right? So one question I always ask people who are interviewing is, what research did you do on me prior to the call? And really quickly, you'll get people that are like, I didn't do any. And come back from that. Okay, well, did you do any research on the company? What else, tell me more about what you've, looked into before talking to us. But that just shows you who, and the best candidates I've seen are the ones that have done some good research, can tie it into your business, can tie it into the role, and ask some good questions off of there. The other one I think is self-starter, right? So you I think regardless of the size of your company, you do need to get scrappy sometimes. So finding people who have examples where they have, had to do something different or create something on their own, whether it's content, an email cadence, a whole training module, is a really cool thing to have. And I think the other question that you had position, Jamie, was just how you continue to hire. So I think obviously we all need to be recruiting all the time, regardless of how great your recruiting team is. I'm constantly on LinkedIn, connecting with people, just building that Rolodex of people that might want to move eventually. And BDR and SDR is hard because you don't usually want to do that as a career, right? You kind of want to move on or move up. Sometimes you'll find somebody who has a great, longevity of like a year at a company and they're a great fit, but they're about to get promoted to an account executive, so they're not willing to move over. So I found that having kind of the why for why your company stands out is different. A lot of companies won't have the career development. So if you can speak to that in any capacity, and we should talk, I think we're going to talk more about development in the role, but I found that leading with that is the best way to pull people over who have experience and aren't super green when you're trying to fill for more of a senior BDR, SDR type of role.
Lindsay, I read recently that career development are millennials' number one ask.
Yeah, no,
the number one ask. And by the way, it's been a top 3 reason. I just said this, a top 3 reason that reps leave companies for the past 5 years, as reported from AAISP, is that lack of development. So they're hunting for it. It's cool that you can differentiate that way.
And that is a good transition to probably a question that I want to aim at Mark, which is obviously this is what our young millennial workforce values. Obviously, coaching is a huge piece of our platform. Running contests, keeping those reps engaged. We've had a ton of questions come in. I know it's hard. I'm looking at the clock and all the questions. You guys, I'm gonna have to email you each, and you're gonna have to do a worksheet later that we can distribute back out.
We'll just start talking faster.
I know, exactly. Yeah. So, but we've had a lot of questions about what are the best spiffs, what are the best contests and competitions, and that is something that I feel like for our entire sales team, since I joined Ambition just a short while ago, and I think I've seen 7 incredible ones just since I've been where I'm okay, how can I help you guys hit this?
I'll throw some ideas out here for you. So I want to start with stop giving away Amazon gift cards as your prize. That is the most grandpa approach to your competitions. It's too easy, and your person takes it and orders canned goods and forgets that they ever were given a $25 gift card. Who orders canned goods from Amazon? That example.
Shipping.
You have a weird team, guys.
But what you need to focus on is experiences, and I like to focus on actual. If you are going to give away a material, it needs to create an experience. To use our own use case here, this quarter we're running a spiff for the account executives, where everyone's probably on this call is probably familiar with the Bird and Lime scooters and Uber, Lyft, now getting into that too. You can buy those, and we're giving away those as prizes for different attainment levels. But what resonates there is that provides an experience. Every time they get on that, they think, I got this from work, right? The other experiences that have been really fun for us and unique, we ran a billboard competition. The prize was a billboard with any content, anywhere, any place. Created a ton of buzz. We sell to salespeople. Sales leaders want to work with people they like, and being able to put someone's face on a billboard in downtown Nashville was quite the story to tell other sales leaders, and they all thought it was a great idea and actually pretty affordable. The other thing I'll say, that this is a client of ours that I loved, was they had managers challenge each other. One manager who was always very well put together, if he lost the competition, he wasn't allowed to shower that night and had to come to work with bedhead in the morning. This guy's team worked so hard to defend him, to make sure that didn't happen. And while that's such a silly example, that stuff resonates. It's human, right? It's their relationship. And so some companies may not be able to get away with that, but just think, experiences, don't give Amazon gift cards. And when in doubt, let your team create the prize, because when they own it, then they're going to work harder for it.
I think that's great. And I think that, it's a good point to also sort of make, we're looking at that history of BDRs and SDRs. You don't need a ton of money to create a really good experience or create something. So I think that's a really good point.
Going home at noon on Friday works.
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen even I actually keep a couple of things that I've got, like tchotchkes that I get randomly from things I won back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Even those things are great. Just some recognition from leaders, something to put on the desk.
Well, I had one more thing here that is cheap that works great. Go buy a little trophy at your local trophy place, $20, and let it be the traveling trophy that goes on the desk of the person who won that week. Yeah. And that recognition is huge.
We made one, Mark. It was like a 2x4 and a troll. It was to the top of it.
I want that. How do
a lot of pride. A lot of pride in that. So I got to talk. One thing I'm going to add, Jamie, on contests is work with alignment. This is for my sales leaders out there. All too often, contests are handed off to the frontline managers, right? You get $50 per rep or whatever the case may be. Go for it, and they have a lot of fun with them. But we're not always aligning the contest to the KPIs or behaviors that are going to get us the results, right? It's easiest to align a contest to a metric. Who's got the most talk time? I can call my mom. Or who's got, who's hit quota, and it's the same 3 guys who win all the time. So when you can look at the KPIs, conversations, callbacks, quotes, show rates, number of people brought to a meeting, things that are signals of success or behaviors that people are doing. Some of the best contests I've seen were actually subjective. And it was like the kind of attitude or the scrappiness or they're not going to give up right? So mix them up and be sure you're aligning the day-to-day contests to the overall goal so everybody has a chance to win and we're role modeling the right daily behaviors.
No, and honestly, my next question was going to be, because we got a ton of other that I'm trying to consolidate, the next question was, what are those leading indicators that actually really matter?
Good. I got the first 3. Good luck, guys.
Yeah, no, you did. I was like, this is perfect. I'm gonna go out back. And I think another big question that I see coming in and that we got beforehand too is, and you mentioned earlier, we did not really, we didn't coordinate this, but Lauren's point of hating scripts, how a lot of people are asking, you don't have a lot of ramp time. You don't have a lot of time to get these people really, feeling successful. What are the best ways that you guys have seen with having them not sound scripted? Mark touched on it, like having their personality sort of inflected in that first 20 seconds. But what part of that, how much of that is coachable and how much of that is just, you got it or you don't got it?
I think everybody kind of needs that gift of gab a little bit to understand how you talk to somebody, but mirroring is important also when you get on a call. But I have found for prepping our new hires, the best thing to do is have use cases, even a one-pager something laminated they can have on their desk, which is quick use cases, quick values for lines of business or verticals that you call into, something that's personable to them, also their business size, because you'll get somebody, you'll talk about Walmart use case, and then they're like, well, I have 10 employees, this doesn't So having things broken out in terms of use case and a couple quick highlights that they can use, I found that really helps go a long way in terms of just getting somebody to feel confident and get over the line and I understand our use case and our value.
Awesome.
Totally.
Awesome. Mark, do you want to go next?
Sure. Yeah.
I feel bad because I always jump in right away. I take the easy one.
You have way more nuggets to share than I do.
This is my bag, though. I'll take the end of the rope. And
yeah, I'm all about, especially in this role, you have to build the right process. You have to show them what right looks like. They need to know what a good day, a bad day is. At the same time, do not make them robots and let them be themselves. And that authenticity resonates with people. One line that a guy on our team used the other day that I loved, he's kind of a nervous guy. He called, got a VP of sales on the phone and said, how much trouble am I in for calling you right now? And he kind of laughed, and the VP of sales laughed and was like, you're not in trouble, but call me back at this time later, right? And that was somewhat of a reflection of himself, and it worked. And so process, but still be a human on the other end of the line.
Yeah.
Totally. So, okay, so how do you teach human and how do you build confidence while shortening ramp time, right? Like those are the three things we're trying to answer with some silver bullets, and I've got a couple for you. One of the first ones is as you're training your reps, right, you've given them tons of information. Now help them translate all of that into key questions, because questions are conversation starters. If their cheat sheet only has the value props, the testimonials, the use cases, they're twice as likely to throw up all over a prospect and not have good, curious conversations. So if you can help take it one step further and their cheat sheet are 5 questions, then you're gold. The second thing that happens is we take those questions, we have reps put them into their own words, right? So it's not scripted, and they sound more confident saying their words than trying to read my words or your words or whoever else wrote the script. Send those people to me. And then what happens is we're doing role plays. I'm telling you like stories from training, and it's great, but it's like robot versus robot, right? And we've all heard that on the phone, and we've been called by those robots. Hell, we don't even need AI, right? Like we've got teams of robots, of SDRs. And what you do then is you take it away and you teach them to have conversations, right? And so it's, nope, you don't get to ask any of the questions that are on this list, or pretend that you're on a first date, or, you know, here's one thing I'm going to write down about myself. You have to try to figure it out and find it. So run different contests and games to get people to just get human and feel the difference in a conversation. And then they can break it down for you afterwards. Like, oh, there's things like follow-up questions. There's active listening. There's the de-roboting of the SDRs. And my number one tip is you have to use call recordings. I know that was one of the questions in here, like what are the must-have tools? Absolutely. There's so many great technologies out there that have it. You don't even have to have their calls recorded. You just need to have some calls recorded and then do what we call the pause game. I think I've got a YouTube video out there on it. When you play calls for reps and then pause and say, what is the customer thinking? What would you say next? It's my number one hack for shortening ramp time, because the ramp isn't there because reps don't know what to say or what they're selling. The ramp time's there is that because they don't know when. Right? You filled up all these product folders in their head. I've got the product and the use case and the customer and the questions and the tech and the appointments and the system, but that they're not sure which one to pull out at the right, what nugget do I use when? So listening to those calls is it slows the game down for them. If you've ever heard new quarterbacks, right? Like it must go really fast with big guys running at you. But once they get a few years in them, they're like, wow, the game's really slowed down for him. He sees the holes, he sees the plays. And that's what we're trying to do for our new reps, because believe me, it comes hard and fast. Anybody who's been on the floor for under a month, they hang up the phone, you say, how'd the call go? And if they're not saying, I have no idea what just happened, they're totally lying to you. Because they're nervous, right? So those are a couple quick hacks for kind of shortening that ramp time and building the reality and the personality and the confidence. And that's key, is helping them have fun with it. And celebrating losses. I'm sorry, I said I was going to stop. That's my last one. Like, as a manager, when they totally F up, like, or they get hung up on, high five them for that. Great, you found your edge. That's part of the game.
Yeah, fail early, fail often, fail forward, right? Like,
fail with fun.
Especially in this role. Yep.
Fail with fun.
I think if you can set up your team to be in an open environment where they can hear each other fail and then give each other credit, and then you also notice that your peers fail also, even the more senior ones. They mess up and they are human and they start again. And one of the hardest things is when a newer SDR or BDR goes into a room to make calls all day, because they're not learning their peers. It's hard.
They're so scared.
Yeah, but you fail once in front of your peers and you have a supportive group or a supportive leader who can give you that high five. Oh my gosh, it goes so far.
And I think this touches on, I have like 5 questions because I'm curious. No, but I have 5 questions that I want to ask, and we don't have that much time. So combining a few together, you guys just touched on it, that open environment, that's a pro tip, but also, what is the relationship of a winning sort of sales org look like when it comes to how everyone else interacts with that SDR team? Because I've definitely been in environments where everybody's like together. And to your point, it's awesome for the SDRs to hear the guy that's been selling for 10 years make a mistake and, all that kind of stuff. But how do you manage that? What does that look like? What are fails and wins you've seen with how people combine those teams? And then also we had some questions about building a remote team. How do you sort of create that environment when maybe everyone isn't, together all the time? So I know that's a lot, but how does everyone interact? And then if they're not able to interact in person, what do you do?
I can hop in here first. So we have part of our sales development team that is remote, and there's a couple of keys. One is there has to be a very quick, real-time communication source when needed for their questions. We use Zoom all the time to humanize this training, even though we're not in the same rooms together. There needs to be retros on, hey, you have to tell me about a call that went terribly. If you don't have a call that went terribly, you're lying to me. Also celebrate the wins. And we have our account executives in the same Slack channel with the sales development teams. And we use our own product, which has celebrations that go off in the Slack channel to celebrate what just happened. And people are saying, who'd you just get? Tell me about the prospect, blah, blah, blah. So that collaboration together and trying to make that as in-person as possible. Obviously, our preference is they'd all be sitting in one room together, sliding the chair over to say, hey, man, that sounded tough. What happened, right? But in not every case is that possible. So that's how we do it.
That's great.
And one thing that we do is, there's always that AE BDR pairing that's really amazing and everyone wants to know how they do it. And I think there's also AEs who want to know how the BDRs prospect. So one thing that we do is monthly we'll try and put an AE and a BDR pairing together. We'll do a 5-minute recording on how they got into an account, on how they got all the way to close. The BDR will speak to the top funnel piece, how I prospected, how I got the contacts, what message I went in with. They'll go into the disco call and then all the way down to the close. And we highlight those in a wins channel similar to what Mark said, just to get it out so everybody can hear, how something is working, and it'll go all the way even sometimes back to how they collaborated and how maybe they attacked the account in the first place. So just sharing those wins kind of organically and hearing directly from the people who are in the trenches and doing it has been really powerful for us.
Jamie, I'll answer the first part of your question. And that's like, how do you set it up for success? I'm going to tell you what I see are the top things that lead to it not going well or disaster. And the first one is an unclear definition or strategy around what is a qualified lead, right? It doesn't have to have Annum or BANT or whatever the case may be. It's whatever's right for your company in your life cycle. So at this stage, we've got we are offering a brand new product. So because it's a brand new product, I'm just looking for conversations, right? I will take anybody because I don't have anybody on the phone, right? But on the flip side, with our more tenured products, I need somebody who has a dedicated need. I need somebody who has, and so sometimes leadership hasn't set that up well enough to understand. And which means you have SDRs grabbing, let's say, conversations and AEs rejecting them because they're not qualified leads. So getting everybody on that same page is really important. I think the other thing that helps it go wrong sometimes is when we've got the wrong mix or number. So if I don't have enough SDRs to keep my AEs busy, then what I have are prima donnas sitting in offices waiting for the silver platter to be brought in, right? And so either I need to change up my ratio, or I need to change up my lead definition, or I need to change up the expectation on these AEs. Right? I don't think anything creates bad blood faster than an SDR who's made 300 calls to get this lead, and the AE who's sitting with their feet on the desk like, yeah, I don't think so. That's probably not going to be good enough for me. right? That doesn't help. I want to end with a question for you guys or for anybody if they want to chat in.
Yeah.
Do you like it best when an SDR is paired up with an AE, right? So they get to know what they like and it's a team, or when it's more round robin and you've got to keep that kind of quality high and you can't just queue it up for one person. So like a relationship or round robin are the two choices. I'm interested in what everybody out there thinks. You don't have to wait for it or answer it here. I know we've got a big queue of questions, but I'd love to hear what the audience likes best.
Yeah. Let her rip, guys.
Yeah. Lindsay and Mark, what do you guys like best really quick before she asks us our
Lindsay, I'm going to default to you. This is a tough one. We've
I'm
done both.
Yeah, I think it really matters kind of what your business needs. Do you need at bats? In that case, I think it's more round robin has worked really well in the past for me. But I think alignments and specific ratios per segment based on the value you're getting from your BDR organization is how I've done it for the most part. So I go more the relationship side.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's our preference. We've kind of gone a couple different directions. The reason I like the relationship is the AE SDR coaching relationship becomes really helpful in setting better meetings, and the expectation, to Lauren's point, is really clear on what needs to be seen. Not that the AE should always define that, but it can be really helpful. But round robin sometimes gets more meetings. And to your point, Lindsay, if at bats is more important, we've definitely gone down that route as well.
Cool.
It looks like we got one of each from the chat. So I think it's probably just what works really for your individual business. Have you seen one?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I like round robin. I love the way you said it, Lindsay, it's really about what type you're looking for. For at-bats, you got to go round robin because it's speed. When you're looking for something that's more qualified, in my experience, you may think you have round robin as a leader, but you don't. Your BDR is holding that lead until the AE that they like best is coming up on the round robin, right? And vice versa. So I see the people gaming the system in order to get the relationship. So cool.
I like that. And final question, I know we're almost out of time, but final question, we had a lot of people asking before and during sort of, how do you know when somebody's done in this role? How do you know when somebody's ready to transition, let's say, to another aspect or to, another position or to no longer being in your organization? Is there a shelf life? Is that 1 to 1.2 year average typically of their own volition, or is that something that, how does that shake out normally? What does that look like?
I think, you get to a point where you're setting meetings, right? And then there's a point when you're actually able to take discovery and qualification. So I'm a really big proponent on having a level chart, some kind of career progression, do a couple stages within your organization, because we all get to that point in a business where all of a sudden you are running out of AE spots and you can't just promote every single BDR right into an AE role. So before you get there, have some readiness programs, have some steps that they can go through to kind of get closer to that next level. And maybe even if you can get there, have a couple different paths and the readiness to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And a big part of that comes in, obviously you have to coach to it, but running disco calls, having deeper qualification, getting into the pain funnel versus just setting a meeting. So having those parts in it.
I really love the idea of the preset paths. I think it's a favor we can all do ourselves as BDR leaders. I was talking with one of my favorite people last week, Mike, who runs a huge team of BDRs, and he groans every time they talk about a BDR getting a promotion to an AE. Right? I'm like, well, but that you're doing the right thing and you're helping people start their career. And he's like, yeah, but like, it shouldn't just be a promotion. It's a different job. It sort of downplays what we're doing as BDRs. And I thought he had a really strong point about that. So one of the best things you can do as a leader is create some micro promotions in the BDR, help people continue to advance, because we all are ambitious and we want to advance, especially the younger workforce, right? They're looking for a promotion for coming to work 6 consecutive days in a row. And so we've got to actually give them the opportunity to be a BDR2 or an advanced or a senior. If you want people to stay with you, help them stay with you. And it doesn't always have to come in more money. It could be on the upside. It could be in the title. It could be in the responsibilities. I love mapping the skills to each of the different ones. And what are you going to be working on? And what's a highly competent BDR6 look like? And what they're able to do in the skills and the competencies versus a 2 or a 1.
I love that. Mark, what are your thoughts?
I can't say it any better than those two. I completely agree. I think they're exactly right on how you have to lay out that path and again, set a clear expectation on what needs to happen in order to be considered if there is an opportunity at the next level. So,
yeah. Jamie, the end of your question was, how do you know when they're done? And that's like any sales rep. That's how you know when they're, like, the activity goes down, the quality goes down, the absence goes up. When they're done, they're done. But I really do invite every frontline sales manager out there to think about the fact that you are helping people start their careers in sales and their experience with you over the next year. Because even though the stat says 1.3, almost half of them are gone under a year, right? You're going to decide whether or not they love sales, right? It really is this blank sheet of paper and an opportunity you have to help them fall in love.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
And I think that's a good, I wish I could ask every single question. I'll send them to you guys after so you have them all. But I think that's a great note to end on. And, why I wanted to start it with, these are the first people, this is the first impression that many people have of your business. So you've got to give as much to this team as you ask of them as well. And so I do think that's a great point. Really investing in their success and just the culture of that being, a nurturing environment, I think is such a great note to end on. Thanks, Rich. Rich liked it. Just saying thank you. And thank you all for joining us. We had, a ton of people on that stayed and lots of great questions, and we will send the recording your way so you can, pass it around. You can email growth@ambition.com as well if you have any questions specifically about us or just, something for these guys after the fact. And Lauren, I know you've got a promo.
Oh, yeah. Well, listen, you can reach me for follow-up questions at lb@factor8.com.
Yep.
And we actually do have a new product. I'm really proud to announce all of our skills are now available online, and we're giving away 2 free weeks of trials. Wait a minute. How do you say that? A free 2-week trial on the Sales Bar. And this year we are announcing BDR certifications in the Sales Bar. So you can come and take a look, poke around, see if that's something that can help your team on me. Go to thesalesbar.com.
Salesbar.com. Well, LB, Mark, Lindsay, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. I wish we could do this for 2 more hours. So, and thank you guys for sticking with us through your lunch hour.
I learned a lot from you guys. Thanks, Mark and Lindsay. Awesome. Thanks so much, Jamie.
Yeah, thank you guys.